Alrighty. It is another day. Retired in Korea. RIK, yeah, illegal health care coverage. Johnny Somali, Korean investment property, and we'll even probably talk about some other stuff. Maybe even hair loss. Who knows? We'll see. We're going to be doing a bunch of different stuff, kind of in an update on our investment property. We got some news on that. So anyway, welcome to the channel. I'm Steve, the American expat who's retired here in Korea. Hobby tech guy kind of thing, making up for lost time when I was adulting and working. So now I'm doing 3D printing, painting, all kinds of cool stuff, and part of that involves living in Korea. We retired here, me and my wife, and we sold everything in the United States, lock, stock, and barrel. So in other words, it ends up the house, the car, the truck, the guns, the ammo, everything in our house, including the kitchen junk drawer. We got rid of everything. When I say we got rid of everything, we have nothing left in the United States. And eventually we ended up here in Korea and yeah, bought an apartment and we're living large and, well, I wouldn't say large, we're comfortable and we're enjoying our early retirement and it works out pretty good. So with that being said, we're going to talk about some things about here in Korea, specifically because where you live, you get involved in some of the things that are going on, and yeah, I just want to bring to light some of the things that are going on in Korea. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is dun dun dun. Oh, we got Terry on board. Excuse me. Good morning. Good morning. Good to see you. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Illegal healthcare coverage. This is kind of an interesting thing because, as we've seen in the world, and I've got some conspiracy theory ideas about immigration and refugees and not, I guess, not immigration, but I guess refugees, and how suddenly was a huge monumental push. We see it in pretty much every single Western country, and yeah, there's a reason behind that. I've got a theory. We got George here popping in saying howdy. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you again. So with that, let's jump into a little bit about illegal healthcare coverage here in Korea. This is going to be an interesting little thing because, you know, as I am an immigrant, I have a visa and I'm an immigrant here in Korea. The thing is that, yeah, you have to pull your own weight. So in other words, when I got my visa, I had to prove that I was a good and upstanding citizen. I had to pass police background checks and so on and so forth. And then I had to get to a place of where it ends up that, yeah, I had to make enough money to stay here in Korea. So there's that. And I had to have health care because if you stay over 90 days here in Korea, you have to sign up for national health care or you have to provide health care insurance that meets the minimum requirements of here in Korea. So yeah, that's the thing. But Gyeonggi-do extends healthcare access to undocumented foreign residents. Oh, please don't. Really. This this is a thing. Gyeonggi Province, which is where I live, Gyeonggi-do, is moving to provide essential medical care to foreign residents who are unable to enroll in public health insurance system because they don't hold a valid visa. Does anybody else see a problem with this? on one hand, you see Korea, and what they end up doing is Korea is cracking down on illegal immigration. But then you get this. You get this here to where it's like, oh, by the way, if you're here illegally, we're going to provide you health insurance. And it's almost like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. According to the provincial government on Friday, the ordinance to provide legal grounds for a new program was passed by the provincial council Wednesday. Healthcare access will be provided to foreign residents who have lived in the province for at least 90 days, but cannot enroll in national health insurance system because of their legal status. Seems like if they can't if they don't have legal status to be here in Korea, they should be deported, because that means they probably haven't passed a background check. Now there's a couple of categories. Let me get this out here. There's two things. If you're in a country illegally, it's because you're unable to pass background checks. You're unable to provide income to support yourself in that country, and or you have a criminal background. And then you have other people that came to Korea. The other category of people are people that came to Korea, say, like on a work visa, and they got fired, or they left their job, or they were a student and they graduated, or they just quit school. And since they're no longer working or going to school, their immigration status is now illegal. So, and they haven't done anything to change that status, which is very problematic, because again, you're still in the same boat. You're breaking the immigration laws of the country. So, but yeah, some people like this over here, this council, which is really interesting, is that they want to give national health insurance to people that are here illegally for all of those reasons, some or all of those reasons that we just discussed, and use tax dollars to give them medical care in a country that they're not supposed to be in, and they're here illegally. Terry says, sounds like Europe and America. I know, right? I mean, I'm all for helping out people, but the thing is, the elephant in the room is that you have people in poorer countries than Korea that are looking to Korea and they're saying, well, I can't get in there legally, or I'm going to go there and I'm going to, get an education, and once I graduate, or I'm going to get a job, get a work visa, but then I'm going to quit that job, or I'm going to get fired and I'm not going to get another job. I'm just going to hang out illegally in Korea. No biggie, because I'm getting benefits of being here in Korea that I don't get in my own country. And so the risk-reward ratio favors me breaking the immigration laws, because in my home country, maybe I don't get medical insurance. Maybe I can't see the doctor. Maybe I can't get benefits. Maybe I can't get food, or, stuff like that. It just like, but then on the other hand, Korea is like, well, we need to clamp down on illegal immigration, and they're deporting people and stuff like that. And it's like, if you offer something that these poor people from poor countries cannot get in their own country, and they're like, I'm going to be an illegal. It just boggles the mind on how this works. So yeah, this is quite the interesting thing. Once the program is launched, support will be provided to those who require medical treatment from a public health perspective. Now, the whole deal behind this, the reason behind this is that, these poor people that are here illegally might have some diseases or medical complications that could affect the national health care here in Korea. So that's kind of the thing that we're doing, is we're providing this so that whatever happens, it will protect the nation as a whole, kind of nipping it off in the bud. Pregnant women, young children, and people suspected of having or being diagnosed with contagious diseases will be given priority. Again, contagious diseases that have been eradicated in westernized countries or industrialized, well-to-do countries, bringing people from other countries or people coming from other countries that have these diseases because their countries are ate up like soup sandwich. We're going to use tax dollars to do that. But forget that that's going to be a draw for more illegals, for people to say, well, yeah, I guess I'll go to Korea because I can get benefits. I can help get housing and food and medical and dental and the whole 9 yards. Even if I have diseases that, if I tried to get a visa, would not allow me to come into Korea because it is a contagious disease, we're not going to deport you. We're going to give you medical care and you can stay in Korea. That makes absolutely no sense to me. Ordinance stipulates governor's responsibility. Again, this is a governor thing. This isn't a Korea thing. But it's a Korean governor. It's a governor within Korea, kind of like a state thing. Responsibility to improve healthcare access for foreign nationals and strengthen public health safety net. That's the guys. It's for the safety of the nation. It's kind of like it's for the children. It's that similar vein of reasoning. Also lays out details on eligibility, cooperation, medical institution, interpretation services, and provision of health information. Yeah. And Terry says, are they providing them with free housing also? Yeah, I don't know. There are benefits that can be had for illegals, and again, if you provide a bunch of free stuff that these people can't get in their home countries, they're gonna, and they have the choice. Well, I'll be an illegal alien in Korea. And George says, and yet the same politicians will complain when they don't have money for programs that are needed, or any program that you do in government takes tax dollars, and the more expenditures that you have, the more money going out, you need to reciprocate and have more money coming in. Now, where does the money come from all this? Taxpayers. Taxpayers who are Korean citizens, taxpayers who are here legally in Korea on visas, like myself. So you're going to have to raise taxes. I get the altruistic, let's rise above and help humanity and all that stuff. But reality says, hey, that's going to cost a little bit of money. So, and people are having a hard time in Korea now with the economy and what's going on. And the recession is still going on. Excuse me. Recession is still going on. We're still having a medical problem here in Korea because of the past doctor strike, which hasn't returned to the normal pre-strike levels before the strike, and it's even worse. So let me take a swig of this Hawaiian blend coffee cake with a little bit of vanilla in there. Ooh, it is so good. Oh, it is fantastic. Hawaiian coffee cake and butternut rum coffee from Hawaii. Oh my gosh, it is the bomb. I just ruined coffee for my Korean family, and they don't like coffee shops anymore because they're always comparing it to my coffee. Go figure. Little pat on the back of myself. Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. So anyway, taxes are going to go up. And people don't like the fact that taxes are going up, and yet we're funding things like this when your constituents don't want their taxes going up. And George brings up a great point. Why work when you can get it for free? Exactly. Yeah. Why work? And which begs the question, because if people are poor from poor countries and they come to a Korea illegally, how did they do that? They'll often go through and they will be into forced labor. There's also ex-UL tourism. We have that thing, ex-tourism. So they come over here to basically get pimped out and everything to pay for their passage to Korea. So you have organized crime that's involved. And so this really just doesn't help the situation, because now organized crime is seeing this and saying, oh, okay, well, you can get healthcare and you can get this. And it doesn't curb, it actually encourages illegal immigration into Korea. Terry says, is that governor from California? Yeah, the same governor who promised to, for the last, 16, 20 years, to end homelessness, and he's only made it worse, exponentially worse, every time he gets reelected. George says, the only benefit that should be provided is a ticket home. I agree. Now, with that, I do think that if somebody is here and there's a medical emergency, then you have to provide that medical attention. Let's say a pregnant mother comes over here, or a woman comes over here and she's pregnant, or she comes over here and gets pregnant because of trafficking, whatever the case is, and she needs medical attention, then obviously you're going to give that. I'm not opposed to that whatsoever. But once you give that medical attention, you get deported back to your home country because you're not supposed to be here. Yes, getting me all started. Let's see. So George pops in and he says, now this governor wants force uh, overworked doctors to work more. Genius, that won't affect the quality of care at all. Yes, yes, it is, which is like what I was talking about before when we were talking about the doctor strike that was here in Korea, where 10 to 15,000 resident doctors went on strike, and so did the medical schools. A lot of those people didn't go back to work. And so there is indeed a shortage of doctors here in Korea, and there's emergency rooms that are closed on certain days and so on and so forth. Pediatrics is taking a huge hit. A lot of other doctors, it's really pushed back appointments far and farther out, to the point of where some people are going overseas from Korea to like Thailand and other countries to get medical care because, yeah, it is, they can't get it here and they can't get it in time. But those are the people that have money. So, yeah. And this is, the doctors are overworked. They absolutely are overworked. So we're talking about doctors here. We're talking about, just as reference, in the United States, you might do an 8-hour shift. You might do a 12-hour shift. You might have to do a 24-hour shift and get the next day off, something like that. In Korea, it's 24 to 36 hours. You're going to be working 6, possibly 7 days a week. You're going to have, there's some estimates that say you're going to have about 100 to 120 patients a day. You might be able to see each patient for 3 or 4 minutes. And it's just, the quality of care that you get is ready to snap. It's ready to pop. And it's an assembly line type of medical care in Korea, which is still very good. But when you throw illegal immigrants into the mix that are not only going to need medical care, but they're going to need translation services. Again, these are expenses that most of the for-profit hospitals are going to have to shoulder in some way, shape, or form. But this goes back to where the government says, oh, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to pay for all that stuff. So, again, more taxes, because the for-profit hospitals, which are the majority of hospitals in Korea, are not going to flip that bill. So again, regardless, the government is going to step in and supplement this, and it's only going to exacerbate the problem even more. So, besides the regular problems that are seen in Korea with the medical system, and we've talked about those in the past. Migrants, including those working without legal permission, have long played a significant role in Korea's labor market. They shouldn't have a significant role in Korea's labor market because they're here illegally. The reason it's significant is because people stopped paying attention, because if you have illegal workers, the majority of the time, the people that hire them don't pay them minimum wage or a living wage like they do regular Koreans or regular workers that are here on work visas. And then it goes into this, particularly the dwindling population of Korean nationals, 91% of farming households and 44.2% of livestock reported illegally employing foreign workers. Yeah, there's a problem with that. Don't you think? Because even though they pay these illegals less than what they should, according to Korean law, a bunch of people do it. And yet these people from other countries are like, wow, I'm getting paid way more, even though it's way less compared to Korean standards. I'm going to be an illegal immigrant. Of course, there's also the mistreatment. There's a number of cases that are going through the news. And in the past, almost 4 years that we've been here this time, of, employees being abused, sexually abused, and so on and so forth, physically beaten and abused. It's just very problematic. So the fact that it is a significant to the labor market just shows that somebody's been turning a blind eye to all this stuff. George asked the question, how much is the kickback that governor is getting? That's a good question. I don't know. And it makes me wonder if these people are just like so out there that they're like, oh, we have to do it for the good of the people. And that they're blind to what's really going on, or they're getting paid. It's one of the two. I don't see a third option. Well, maybe there is a third option. Maybe they're just crazy. Yeah. Terry says the problem is the government doesn't make money. They take money from legal taxpayers to fund their unworkable programs, which is totally good. That's right. I mean, but it is a workable program. But the problem is you have to raise taxes to do it, and then you've set a precedence for people in poor countries that look to this and they say, well, I can't get this stuff in my country. I'm going to go to Korea, even though I'm illegal. I can get medical care. I can work under I can work illegally, but I'm going to get way more than what I do in my home country. That this is only going to be an advertising campaign to get people to come to Korea illegally, which is going to be the hamster wheel that it's going to make the problem even bigger. And then they're going to have to do more to curb contagious diseases and this and that. And then that's going to be more tax money. And there's going to be more draws from people of other countries and see, it's just going to keep going and going. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It's not going to stop. Human rights organizations, migrant advocacy groups have long argued that migrants in Korea illegally are effectively excluded from the healthcare system. Yes, because they're here illegally, raising concern not only their human rights, but also public health in general. This is interesting because they ignore borders. They ignore the sovereignty of the nation, and they think that, and I've seen some interviews that is honestly shocking, of where it's like we should just have open borders. Just let anybody in. We're all the human race, which sounds nice, and maybe a Hollywood, blockbuster movie or woke blockbuster. Well, woke and blockbuster don't go together. They're opposites. But it doesn't work when you come and you face reality. It just doesn't work that way. So it's migrants end up paying several times more than other patients, while some are charged even higher rates intended for medical tourism. Because they're here illegally and people will abuse that. So if you stop the illegal immigration and you you send them back home, and then you punish the people here in Korea that are abusing the system and overcharging illegals, I think that would fix the problem. Punish the people that are breaking the law. I think I'm onto something here. Punish the people that break laws. I don't know. With 735,000 foreign residents as of March, I'm part of those foreign residents, but I'm not illegal. The largest among Korean provinces is Gyeonggi province, which is where I live, to have one of the country's largest illegal staying resident populations. Is also thought to have one of the largest illegal, and I've seen illegals in my neighborhood. Yes, absolutely without a fact. Heard people talking about it. Yes, had conversations with people that said they're illegals. Yeah, I don't harp on them or be mean or anything like that, because we're all human beings. Treat people with respect, but just trying to understand and why these people leave the countries that they do and come to Korea to work illegally. And it's because their own countries are lacking. I want to use French, but I'll just say lacking. It's very crazy. The ordinance is intended to connect foreign nationals who are outside the existing healthcare system of public health services and medical resources. Well, the problem is they wouldn't be outside of that healthcare system if they were deported. We wouldn't have this problem because they're not supposed to be here anyway, which according to Korean law, they should be deported. But we keep having people like this that are coming up and saying, oh, let's give them all kinds of accessibilities, let's give them all types of benefits, let's give them medical care and all this stuff. That is only going to be a draw for more people to become illegal immigrants here in Korea. So it's just very, very problematic on the healthcare system that we got going on. Let's get to some comments. DJD says, hopefully Korea does not create an illegal alien problem for itself like the US, Canada, and Europe has done. It is. It's just very slowly doing it. And again, you have this altruistic, what is it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs of self-actualization and, be good to everybody and everyone and, feel warm and fuzzy and open borders and we're all human beings. The problem is that, again, reality doesn't support that. And the more illegals that you have, isn't it interesting that you also have more crime? Way more crime. And if we look at the United States, Canada, and Europe, especially Europe, and where we have refugees or illegal immigrants, isn't it interesting that the majority of them are men that are between the ages of 18 and 35? Isn't it kind of, this is my conspiracy theory. This is my theory. It is but it's actually based in reality because a long time ago in the United States that you had Florida. Florida is a state, and then down, was it like 90 miles away from Florida, is Cuba. And Cuba, what they ended up doing is saying, hey, well, we got some problems here. We can't take care of our own people, and we have too much expense, too much money going out, and we have too many people. Our prisons are full. What can we do? Oh, we'll send them to Florida. We'll tell them, excuse me, we'll tell these prisoners that when you get to the United States or whatever country that you're going to, in that time it was the Cuba and the United States, they said when you get to the United States, claim to be a political prisoner. And of course, there's no way to background check any of these people. And so you had lifelong criminals, murderers, rapists, and the such, horrible people that would never been given legal access or into the United States to begin with, suddenly came into the United States and the crime rates went up. And now if we fast forward to what we see today, we see the exact same thing. Refugees that are 18 to 35, none of them, they're all male, the majority of them. And isn't it interesting that they are causing a bunch of crimes? And if you look at the crime stats for European nations, US and Canada, with these groups of people, and the resources that they suck up is absolutely disgusting. And it's almost like as if we don't care that we have immigration laws. It's very, very bad. But yeah, it's slowly happening here in Korea. Dun, dun, dun. George pops in and says it'll eventually come to a head like the UK and US, where you see politicians care more for whom help them maintain power than their own countrymen. Yes, that is very problematic. That is very problematic because someone's getting paid. Someone is getting paid. And in my conspiracy theory, the theory that is based on what I've seen in history before of emptying out prisons, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say a lot of the male refugees, 18 to 35, that don't have families, that are suddenly political prisoners and blah, 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 whatever, were mandated by the European Union that the EU said, hey, you got to take all these people and, you get fines or whatever it is. They put pressure on these countries to accept them, and all of a sudden crime explodes. If there's a difference between being a refugee and being a real refugee because my country hates me because, I don't know, maybe I'm gay or whatever it is, or, I don't like wearing a burqa or whatever, whatever it is. Your life is in danger. I totally get that. There should be some provisions for that. But if you do that and you come to a country and then you break the laws in that country, your refugee status should be thrown out the window. Especially when it comes to serious crime. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Actions should have consequences. Which brings up the movie, what is it, Citizen Vigilante or whatever it is, that new movie that came out. I haven't seen it, with Armie Hammer, and that's getting a lot of press. Holy crow! I'm interested in seeing what that's all about. But yeah, it's very, very, very problematic. DJ says like a sleeper army. Yeah, but not that there's a big conspiracy to overtake the world. And there are people who believe that is that the spread of certain religious groups and extremism within a country and get a footprint into countries, and then you can't get them out. It's like ticks on a dog, and it just goes downhill from there. You can see places like Minnesota, in the United States, and in the UK, in different places. There's neighborhoods where the police don't go because there's so much crime. There's places where the police will not go during hours of darkness. There's places where these religious extremists have their own court system and police force that is totally against the laws of the countries that they're in. Holy crow. Yeah, it is. Is it a sleeper army by design, or is it just because of that's how these people think? Yeah, it could be. It's just very, very problematic. Very problematic. So yeah, we got that going on. But yeah, we kind of went off on a tangent there on the illegal. But in the healthcare thing, more goods and services going out for people that are not supposed to be in the country anyway is only going to drive taxes up, which is going to cause more problems and ripple effect within medical, crime, everything else, and more taxes and more taxes and more taxes. And once they get a foothold to the point of where it ends up that, like what George was saying, is that money somehow flows into the hands of politicians, that's where the real corruption comes in. And we've seen that overseas. We've seen it in the United States, into where you have people from other countries that are there illegally holding public office, like we see in the United States and other countries. How do you get into office of a country, of a sovereign nation, and you're there illegally? Holy crow, that is backwards. That just boggles the mind. But let's just get back down to reality, and let's continue talking about important medical things, like, I don't know, what is some of the gripping problems that we have today in the medical world? Is it cancer? Is it, serious diseases? Is it, flesh-eating disease? Is it diabetes? Is it, just kidney dialysis, kidney failure? About a third of the people are going to have failed kidneys. Are we going to concentrate on all of these things, or are we going to concentrate on something that is ultimately important? And yes, we're going to talk about something that's ultimately important right after we say hi to Ferrithus. Yeah, we're doing good. Hopefully you're doing good, sir. Yeah, so on the medical front here in Korea, there's this huge thing. Oh my gosh, you would think that with all the hype that is going on, you would think, is it a cure for cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's? Is it some, we're getting rid of type 2 diabetes permanently, whatever it is? Are we, we've cured cancer? No. Now, keep in mind, we've just been talking about paying for things that don't make sense with taxpayer money. In the same vein, we're going to look at this even more, because here in Korea is bald is bald enough. Koreans watch closely. Hair loss insurance debate. The current president says that it is a national emergency for men to lose their hair, and that he wants to use taxpayer money for national health care coverage to pay for hair treatment for men. Yeah, cover that. Cover the hair, the losing of the hair. And there, public interest is mounting ahead of government-hosted public forum on 4 July, which is Independence Day for the United States. Will examine whether national health care insurance should be expanded to cover hair loss treatment. It has drawn particular attention from young adults 20 to 34 being considered for potential coverage, who are seeking answers about how hair loss is diagnosed, treatments available, and whether it can be cured. We're going to spend taxpayer dollars on this. But forget the women. This is just for men. Hair loss is broadly classified as alopecia areata, androgenetic alopecia, depending on its cause. Yeah, it's develops when testosterone circulating in the bloodstream is converted into a more potent hormone after reaching hair follicles and shrinkage, and you lose hair. And some of it's just genetic. It is what it is. You're going to lose your hair, and that's your lot in life. But it talks about this and that, is you have a history of hair loss in your family and blah 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 and whatever. They talk about how they diagnose it and a hair pull test, blah, blah, blah. If more than 10% of the hairs come out easily, it's considered positive for active hair shredding, shedding, whatever. It talks about all this stuff. And then, finasteride, whatever ride, minoxidil are treatments that are under consideration as being covered by the Korean government with taxpayer money, and other plasma, low level laser therapy, plasma rich injections. All of this costs a lot of money, and hair loss is difficult to cure completely. Most of the time it's pretty difficult, but the elephant in the room is, should we be paying this just so men can have hair? I don't think so. I think there's things when it comes to healthcare. Obviously, keeping people alive with emergency services is pretty important, and then there's maintenance and so on and so forth, and dealing with current medical situations or issues that you have with medication, treatment, and so on and so forth. But when you get down to it, the president of Korea said, "Yeah, it's a national thing. It's a healthcare issue. It's a national issue. It's horrible. We need to get healthcare, full heads of hair for men. Forget women. Don't worry about that." And some people are like, "Hey, no, this is not something that we should do. We should not be funding using taxpayer funds to treat hair loss, because that's kind of a cosmetic thing." And which actually it is. It's a cosmetic thing unless there's some weird, minute example of where, some disease or whatever, and you could try to, take some medicine and minoxidil or whatever and try to regrow your hair because you had some disease that took all your hair, cancer. Things like that. I can get that. I'm behind that. But if it's just normal hair loss, that's cosmetic. And if it's a cosmetic treatment now, where do we draw the line? Do we draw the line and say, well, what's the next thing? And it's funny that women aren't mentioned in this at all. It's all just for men. Hair care for men, hair loss for men. Forget the women, which I just find that very, very odd. And there's a big women's groups that are up in arms about this because women have alopecia where they lose hair and they're not being afforded the opportunity to get this because it's just for men. Anybody else see a problem with this? Equality? No, we're a couple steps behind on the equality scale for this. It's just like, I don't know. I just don't think hair loss, which is a cosmetic treatment, what's next? Do we get little Johnny down there? Do we get him enlarged because that's a problem? And men, it's devastating to men because they're small and petite and they need more length and girth. Girth. Are now we going to fund that with taxpayer dollars? What other treatments are we going to do? Nose jobs? Are we going to do eyelid tucks? Are we going to do tummy tucks? Or breast implants? Or what? We're on this sliding scale, and there needs to be a line drawn and say, you know what? You're losing hair. It's a genetic roll of the dice. We're not going to use taxpayer funds unless it is your hair loss was due to serious injury or disease like cancer. It just, in my opinion, I don't think we should be spending taxpayer money for that. Because first of all, there's no guarantee that it's going to work. And a lot of these medications, if you stop using the medications, I don't know if you know this or not, but like finasteride and minoxidil, you can use it and you'll get some hair growth. And then if you stop using it, you go back. In some cases, it even gets worse than before. So now you're creating a lifelong dependence on medication, which means more tax dollars, higher taxes. And even then, it might not even work. It's not going to give you that full head of hair that you had when you're 16, 17, 18 years old. I just don't think it's fiscally responsible. I don't think it is. I actually don't think it is. I don't know. It's just very problematic that we see stuff like this, and it just kind of bugs me. It would bug me if it was a thing in the United States, and it bugs me because I live here in Korea, and some tax dollars kind of go that route. I don't know. If I had hair loss, my racing stripes are getting. You can see it get a little high. Yeah, get a little bit high there. See that? Yeah, it's going back. It's a high speed, low drag is what that is. But you know what? Even if I was going bald at 30, I wouldn't want to do this and place an additional burden on taxpayers for baldness, because it's not right. It's a cosmetic thing. It's not right. So that's what we got going on there. Yeah. Hey, we got Ferret that says, so what you're saying is that I should start selling Rogaine in South Korea. It's already for sale, and it's not expensive. That's the thing. It is not expensive here in Korea. In the United States, getting a prescription for that stuff is pretty expensive. Here in Korea, it is not expensive at all. My wife gets, she had me try the Rogaine thing and whatever, and she got me that stuff from a Korean pharmacy over the counter, and it was like 6,000 or 8,000 won, which is just a few bucks. It's not bad. Medicine prices here in Korea are way cheaper than in the United States, and it's the same in other foreign countries as well. So, but even with that being said, I don't want taxpayers to pay for that, because now you're creating lifelong dependence on medications that people will take for the rest of their lives. That's going to be a huge uptick in expenses. I just don't get it. John K. pops in and says, good morning. Good morning. Yes, hair loss debate that's going on. 4th of July is going to be a big one. We'll see how that goes. But the president of Korea ended up saying that, yeah, this is a national issue. Politicians. It makes you wonder. The other thing we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about Johnny Somali. Johnny Somali, in case you didn't know, is the YouTuber that we see there, sentenced to 6 months in South Korean prison. Now, I know we went from hair loss. Johnny doesn't have a lot of hair, but he's also an idiot, so it goes hand in hand. But Johnny Somali was a nuisance streamer. I know, I didn't do a good transition, did I? I'm sorry. Let me just hit the like button if you think I need to improve my transition because that was very abrupt. We went from talking about bald people to boom, Johnny Somali. There was no, I'm doing this on the fly. I don't have a script or anything, so this is what it is. But anyway, now that we've done that, but yeah. Johnny Somali came over here to Korea almost 2 years ago or something like that, 1.5 years, 2 years ago. He's been here for a minute. He broke the laws. He's a nuisance streamer. He did a lot of bad stuff. He even got into making deep fake videos, which is going on here, and it's just very, very problematic. He broke a bunch of laws. He's an idiot, and then he was never remorseful. He got into deepfake videos, which is him kissing another Korean YouTube streamer here, which is against the law in Korea because kissing is considered a sexual act. And then he distributed that. He showed it on his live stream, which is distribution. And the punishment for a deepfake video is 12 years. And he did 2 of them. One of them kind of like, he's out of it, because the other person who brought the charge, and they kind of wanted to charge each other. It's like, you did it, well, you did it too, well, you did it, and they're doing this in court, which is weird because Johnny's in court for what he did, not because of what another streamer did. And the fact that the whole thing is that they dropped it basically because Johnny and this other streamer didn't want to get into trouble. That was the other case. and the court didn't take that. And Johnny still made the deepfake, or at least distributed it, which is a 12-year sentence. So that kind of got thrown out. He got charged with a bunch of other stuff, some other misdemeanor things and stuff. And he's been over here, well over a year because he couldn't leave Korea. And then finally, it ends up, after all the court dates and all this stuff, he finally gets to the point of where he gets his punishment, and he only gets 6 months. I am so disappointed in the Korean justice system. It is absolutely crazy. George says he should have gotten more years, but I think they just want to get rid of him. I know, I get it, but yeah, the problem is, again, it's just going to be an invitation. 6 months. I was in the military. I was on deployments. I spent 12 years overseas altogether. I've been to different countries, and I've been to some shitholes. And you know what? 6 months, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And going to a Korean prison for 6 months, I'll get content, I'll write a book, I'll blah, 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 whatever it is. It's not going to hurt me. It's not going to change my mind. But if you had a sentence of like 5 or 6 years, that would be a deterrent for all other nuisance streamers to say, 6 years? Holy crap, I'm not going to go to Korea. I'm not going to break the laws. And the Korean, they blew it. They blew their chance to slap this down and stop this. But with this 6 month sentence, they haven't. And then there was an appeal after Johnny got sentenced to 6 months. There was an appeal by Johnny Somali, and there was an appeal by the prosecutor, who originally wanted 3 years. So it went from 12 to 3 to 6 months. And I kind of figured, when I saw that the prosecutor recommended 3 years, I automatically thought, I'll be surprised if he gets a year. I'll really be surprised if he gets 1 year. Because Korea is known for not prosecuting to the fullest extent of the law. It's just what they do. Unless it is a really heinous law or crime, they don't do the max punishment. And so when the prosecutor said 3 years and it ended up being 6 months, I was like, yep, that's kind of how it goes. So the good thing is, if you ever break the law in Korea, and even with Johnny's horrendous actions, he said, I'm sorry, I didn't know, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then so he gives that stuff and says the same old, crocodile tears. And he said, I'm bipolar, and I miss my family. He hadn't seen his family, he hates his family. Obvious lies. And then as soon as he says that in court, that I shouldn't be punished harshly, the same day he goes and live streams and says that was all bullshit, and talking bad about Korea and the Korean people and the judge and prosecutors and all that stuff. It shows that he is an asshat. So the fact that they still gave him 6 months, and they knew about all of the stuff that he had been streaming after he made these empty, sorry apologies, just shows that, they're not serious. They're really not serious. So, and that is only going to encourage nuisance streamers to come back. So Johnny Somali ended up, he did an appeal. The prosecutor did an appeal because they wanted to try to get back up to 3 years, which I knew that would never happen. At best I thought, well, if there is an appeal and it is looked at again, the prosecutor, the judges, which is a panel of 3 judges, might just end up saying, give me a year and that'll be it. But I didn't think that was going to happen. And that's not what happened. There was no increase on his time, which he should have gotten, in my opinion, to serve as a lesson for other people. So Seoul upholds a prison term for U.S. live streamer Johnny Somali, who is not Somali, by the way. He's not a Somali. He hates Somalians, and he just uses that moniker to get clicks and views. And there's Idiot Boy himself. Notice he has an Israeli flag and a U.S. flag down here. He hates the United States. He hates Israel. At one time he wore, a MAGA hat or whatever. He's just anything to get clicks and views. So anyway, The appeals court upheld the 6-month prison sentence who drew anger after kissing a statue commemorating victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery, which isn't a crime, by the way. But the crimes he did commit, he should, in my opinion, he should have gotten more. Should have got a longer sentence. Ramsey Khalid Ismail, better known as Johnny Somali, leaving intact a lower court ruling and sentenced him to just 6 months in prison. He's convicted of obstruction of business, distributing fabricated obscene content under the Act on Special Cases Concerning Punishment of Sexual Crimes. That's the deepfake video that the max sentence was 12 years, and violating the Minor Offenses Act. The fact that they didn't slam dunk him is a disservice, because other nuisance streamers are going to be like, yeah, Korea doesn't sound too bad. We can do some pretty horrendous stuff in Korea. We can harass a bunch of people there, and we won't get punished that much. So, yeah. Terry says Japan, Thailand, and Israel all let him off easily as well. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think we're coming to a time in the world where countries need to look at these nuisance streamers and say, you know what? Johnny Somali, Vitali, who went to the Philippines and got in trouble. You know, all these nuisance streamers, pretty much you just hit Twitch and whatever streaming, find out who these people are, and countries ought to just say, you know what? We're not letting you in our country. You're banned from entering our country. That would fix the problem. But the problem is a lot of people aren't doing that. They're not doing that at all. So, yeah, and it all started with a convenience store in Mapogu, Western Seoul, where he played loud music, spilled noodle cup on the table. No, he didn't spill the cup. He was drinking. He was like alcohol, which is illegal. He threw noodles at people. He was yelling, being an ass, disrupting businesses. It was more than just playing, oops, I spilled my noodles. Oh, no, that's not what happened. He's also accused of causing disturbances on buses, subway, and Lotte World. Live streaming obscene video fabricated by combining the faces of a man and woman. That was a deepfake video. And the Statue of Peace, yeah, twerking on them, the whole nine, kissing them, reaching under the skirt, is not indictable. But yeah, it was just absolutely crazy. So the prosecutor sought a 3-year prison term, but the court ended up 6 months, and then it went to appeal, and they said, no, 6 months is good. The court also ordered restrictions on his employment and institutions serving children, teenagers, and people with disabilities after his release. In other words, he's going to be like an ex-offender registry. He appealed the first one, saying that, oh, I have family in the U.S. and they miss me deeply. Be light on me. He hates his family. He said it on live stream. So he does this crocodile tear stuff. And then he said he had, oh, I'm bipolar and blah, 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 with no proof whatsoever. And the fact that the Korean courts never asked for any proof, that's problematic. The appeals court rejected both sides of challenges, keeping it 6 months. Yeah, I think what they ended up doing is just taking this and saying, you know what? Yeah, we're just going to get him out of here, and it is what it is. That's as far as that's going to go. So, yeah, it's just very problematic. John K says, sorry about my comments. Oops. I don't know. What did you say? The only thing I see John saying was good morning and this one here, so I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Yeah, that's the only comments I got from you. I don't know if it's an automated thing. You said something and YouTube just kind of said no, took the comment away. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, we've got that stuff going on with Johnny Somali, which is I'm just I'm very disappointed in the Korean government and the fact that they ended up saying, you know, we're only going to give you 6 months on this thing. John says 2 comments removed. I didn't see any comments besides your good morning and the comment about sorry about my comments. They didn't pop up in my comments and reactions thing. So it must be an automatic YouTube thing, which is getting scary. AI telling you what you can and can't say. I don't know. This isn't a show for children. So yeah, none of my videos are for children or anything like that. It's just adult content and me sharing information and things. So yeah, I don't know why, but be careful with your comments. Please, please, all of you be careful with your comments. We can talk about some controversial things, but we need to do so in a manner that, kind of like, what is it like on Instagram or others, that you can't say certain words. It's, you can say grape, but you can't say grape without the G because it'll flag it and you can get kicked or whatever. Which is weird because you can't say like Erder, put an M in front of it. Sometimes you have to say unalive, or you can't say somebody was illed, put a K in front of it, but you have to say that person was unalive. It means the same thing, but it's just it's very problematic because there are definitions for words, like the M word, not the MF word, but the word for killing somebody with an M, Erder with an M in front of it, has a very specific definition versus just unaliving somebody. Unaliving could be somebody was unalived accidentally, or somebody was unalive because they just were old and they died of natural causes, or whatever it is. It seems to remove, when you change the words that you can use because some words are offensive, we're coming into an area where really now downplaying the seriousness of certain situations. Because if somebody is unalived, it's like, oh, well, a guy had an altercation and unalived, the victim was unalived. It's like, well, what happened? Was it homicide? Was it, premeditated murder? Was it, all of these things? The problem is that we're not addressing reality, and that can be problematic down the road. And then as soon as you get people that are like, oh, that word offends me, we're in. Have you seen the movie Idiocracy? It's an old comedy. It's rough. It's got some rough language in it. It was meant to be a comedy, but it's really turning out to be a documentary. If you haven't seen it, it's free on YouTube. So check it out. And if you watch it, you'll just be like, oh my gosh, seriously? Yeah, I know. At the time it came out, we didn't have any of the problems that were on in that video. And now we're dealing with the exact same problems that are in that comedy. It's crazy. John says, I mentioned that he may get beat in prison. There's a possibility. I worked in prisons for over 11 years, and there is inmate justice. But where Johnny is at right now, it's kind of like in a detention center. He's been in the detention center waiting the appeals, and now that the appeal is over, I don't think he has any appeals left unless it goes to the Korean Supreme Court, which if he does, he'll stay in the detention center in Seoul, I think is where he's being held, which is like 6, 8, or 10 people to a room. There's not much air conditioning. It's not, people say they would rather be in a Korean prison than in the detention because it's worse there. It's just crowded. It's not, it's really rough. So no love lost. Johnny could stay there the whole time. But he's begging for money. And again, 6 months is going to be no problem. That's just going to give him time to gather content. He doesn't have a phone or anything, so he can't live stream. But people are sending him money. He's going to be able to write. He'll do scripts. He'll probably write a book or some BS or whatever and call out the atrocities of the Korean, prison system, which is, again, I don't think the Korean justice system ended up thinking this through when they sentenced him. This is just going to be more of a black eye for Korea on multiple fronts. And it's not going to deter a lot of the nuisance streamers, which we've already had other nuisance streamers come to Korea. They should all be banned. I don't know. So, yeah, we got that going on. But, yeah, he could have problems in Korean prison. But he needs to keep his nose to the ground. He needs to be not an idiot. He needs to go with the flow, don't cause any problems. And if he does, there's a possibility that no matter what prison you go to, and I've worked in some good prisons that were, pretty on top of trying to keep inmate to inmate violence down, and took great steps to do that with cameras and officers and blah blah blah. But it still happens. You can't monitor somebody 24 hours a day, 6 months, all the time. It just doesn't happen. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, for those of you who remember, we're going to talk about Korean investment properties. This is interesting because as long as I don't break the law, I'll be good. Oh, it's the wife. The wife is back. Hey, sweetie. How was it?
Good.
More stuff?
Yeah.
What are the odds? I'm making a video if you want to come say hi to everybody.
Hi.
No, she doesn't want to show her face. She's too beautiful. That would take away from the focus on me. So yeah, maybe some other time. So anyway, as long as I don't break the law, I should be good to go. And for those of you who know, I bought the apartment that we're in now, and then we were looking at my transitions today. Just suck, don't they? Yeah, I haven't had breakfast. I haven't finished. Well, I've had latte, but which, by the way, is a Hawaiian coffee cake blend. Oh my gosh, that was really good. But I still think the butternut rum is my favorite Hawaiian coffee that I got so far. I've got like a bunch of bags, and I suck the air out of them, and I put them into the freezer and try to hold it off as long as possible. So we'll see how long those bags of coffee last. So yeah, there it is. Buying an investment property. So horrible transition. Forgive me. I'm just not operating on all fours. But yeah, here in Korea, it's interesting because I've run the gamut of a bunch of people telling me foreigners can't buy property in Korea. They can. And I've had people tell me that you can't. And I'm sitting in my apartment that I bought here in Korea. I've been online on social media and people telling me, no, you can't buy property in Korea. And I'm like, this is mine. I bought it. And it's funny that some of those people have never been to Korea. So they just got some bad chat GPT information or whatever. So I give the up-to-date and real information on what's going on. With that being said, the Korean government has been trying to keep real estate prices down, try to keep down the appreciation that is skyrocketing, property prices going up, becoming unattainable like we see in the United States, which is really, really horrendous. Here in Korea, it's pretty rough. And so the Korean government had 9 exclusion zones to where foreigners cannot buy property as investment properties. The only way they can buy them is if they buy the property and move into them and live in them for 2 years as their primary residence. That's the caveat for 9 certain areas within Korea. Outside of those 9 areas, it's game on. You can buy whatever properties that you want. Like this apartment that we're in here, I bought it before that rule became a thing, but this was our primary residence. If I was going to buy another apartment in this area, I would have to move into that apartment and live in that apartment as our primary residence, and then I would be able to rent this place out. So that's kind of a thing. But property prices here are pretty expensive, outside the budget. We didn't like it. And it's like I wanted to have a place that is a little bit newer. This apartment complex is like 9, almost 10 years old. So we went to Asan, and if we actually got, yeah, there it is, boom. This will just play in the background. And what we ended up doing is just taking a look at some property in Asan Technical Valley. So apartment hunting, those are the apartments there. And they're fairly new. The apartment complex that we looked at is only 2 years old, 2 years and a few months or whatever. So we kind of did the tour and everything and what that ended up looking like. And as far as the layout, we went over some basic numbers on this, and we could buy this or we can buy an apartment in Asan Technical Valley without having to move into it and live in it for 2 years as our primary residence. So we can buy it as an investment property. So we got that going on. And the interesting thing is that the government has these rules to kind of limit investment properties that foreigners can buy, but it ends up that, let me change something here real quick. No, that's not what I want. What do I want? I want this, and I want that. There we go. That they want to prevent by foreigners not buying these properties. And then there's a little bit of it of where even Koreans kind of limiting the amount of properties that Koreans can buy as investment properties. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing as well. So yeah, because a lot of people, what they'll end up doing, like this apartment complex here, this is complex 9 that we're going to be buying. They have a plan for 10, 11, and 12, a total of 12 complexes of multiple buildings with each complex. But with that, you can get the pre-sale of that unit. So let's say you get a pre-sale price of, 400 million won, whatever that comes out to. I guess I should probably bring that up. 400 million won, 400 million. Divide that by, say, 1535. So let's say $260,000. So $260,000, $300,000, whatever it is, that you can get the pre-sale price for an apartment. And they do like a lottery. So you put your name in, you get a lottery, and if you win and you get picked, then you can buy that property at that discount price. Now, and that's before the apartment is even built. So they you pledge the money, you put some money as a down payment. That goes to the people who build the apartments, and then they're able to use that and go to the bank and get the funding to build that apartment complex. With that being said, after that all happens, you get a discounted property. So in the case of like 400,000 or 400 million won, soon as that goes public and you can sell that, usually the price goes up, 25, 30, 40, 50 million won. And so what people will do this lottery system. They'll buy an apartment at the pre-sale price, kind of like, the pre-order price. And then as soon as it goes live, they can sell it. They'll hold on to it for a little bit and they'll sell it and they'll make, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60 million won, depending on the area that it's in. So there's a lot of speculation for real estate prices here in Korea. And that's what a lot of foreigners were doing. A lot of rich Chinese, the majority of them were Chinese, buying apartments, waiting, turning around and selling them, boom, or just doing the buy and hold and renting those properties out, was becoming a huge problem because China doesn't reciprocate in that regard for Koreans. Koreans can't go to China and buy property. So there's a little problem with that, and apparently a lot of people were pissed off about that, and then the Korean government went silent over it, and then Korea opened up the tourism to China, and you have a bunch of Chinese coming over here like that. And so I'm not sure if money had anything to do with it. So anyway, under this revision of this real estate deal that they got going on, doing this investment property has been kind of interesting because it's very different than what it is in the United States. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So let's talk about that. If I can get off of that. Okay. So in buying an investment property here in Korea is very, very interesting because it's not like the United States. First of all, here in Korea, there is no escrow company. In the United States, you have an escrow company, so you have the buyer, you have a seller, and then in between those two, you have an escrow company that's going to deal with the banks and the money and down payments and all that stuff. Title's not going to be released or given, or unless there's a mortgage and so on and so forth. You have title insurance and things like that. Here in Korea, things are a lot different because there is no escrow company, and there's a lot of trust in the real estate process here in Korea, which just boggles the imagination coming from the United States. But there needs to be some context to that. So like when we came and we got our visas to live here in Korea, we had to have income to support ourselves, and that's reportable. And we had to prove that I made X amount of money from investments and pension and so on and so forth. So, I think it was like 2 years of bank statements, tax returns for a couple of years, whatever, letters from the military and DFAS for my military pension and so on and so forth. So I had to prove what I made in the last few years, what we had in savings, our expenses, what we had in savings, the whole 9 yards. And so when we go to purchase this property, we need to finance part of it, which is only about $55,000. The rest of it were paid off. So it'll take us about 3 years. But in the process of buying, the Korean banks or the finance companies, Korean bank, that is doing this financing deal and holding this mortgage, they're going off of that reported income from my visa information. They didn't ask for tax returns. They didn't ask for bank statements. As a matter of fact, what they ended up doing is just calling and saying, hey, yeah, we just got a question on this. How much money are you making a month? Well, boom, there it is. And we tell them, the wife told them how much we made. And it's, oh my gosh, is that per month or a year? Is that per year, right? And they're, no, that's how much we make in a month. And they're like, wow, that's a lot, especially with the exchange rate. So that was a good sign for us. But it was just verbal verification. And somebody who's worked in prisons and worked in the military, which are kind of similar, and what we end up seeing is that there's an opportunity to abuse that system. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of foreign fraudulent real estate purchases based off of information of saying, hey, this is how much money you make, but in reality, you're not. Those figures are manipulated or generated falsely, and you're not really making up that money, or you got outside financing from somebody else or whatever. There's just a whole lot of problems that can arise by not having a system of checks and balances. Now, the other interesting thing is that usually in the United States, you have a system of checks and balances, and you have to provide income verification. And then you have your money going out and your money coming in, and to where you have that debt to income ratio. If your debt to income ratio is out of whack in the United States, generally what will end up happening is that you will end up not being able to get a mortgage. So, but here in Korea, no debt to income ratio. I guess they just took the income that was reported off of our visas and said that's good enough. And when we asked the question to find out and say, well, how is this possible? How is this a thing? I want to understand how this works. And apparently, the bank can make the loan if it's a good real estate deal. And they can make money even if it goes into foreclosure. And so they add on an extra, whatever it is, like 8 million won or something like $5,000 or whatever it is, 6 grand, something like that, on top of it. So even if it goes into foreclosure, they can still sell the property, they'll still make money, and they'll get a little bit extra for their time, in having to deal with that. So they'll make money on the deal. But that's assuming that the real estate market isn't going to drop. And we've seen what happens in the United States when real estate drops and banks are left holding the bag. That can be very detrimental. So just very, very different. Very, very different. The other different thing is that you have a Korean realtor. We have our realtor. You have the seller that has a Korean realtor. But they operate differently here in Korea. So we saw the property. And it's like, okay, it's already got tenants in it that just signed a 2-year contract, but the seller is motivated to sell. He wanted to quick flip the property and make, 20, 30 million won or whatever it is, and then move on to his next deal. That's all he does is flip properties. So that was good for us. We got the property under normal price, which, we probably saved about 30, 40 million won, which was pretty good. Probably about 40 million won, 30, 40 million won. And so it's a great deal at the get-go. To make a contract on the property, our realtor says, here, sign this paperwork that you're interested in this property. You got to pay something like $5,000. You got to send that money to the seller. not to an escrow company, not to the seller's real estate agent or anything like that. We had to wire the money to the seller and then call the realtor up and say, hey, yeah, we wired the money. And then the realtor would check with the person that received the money and say, hey, did you get the money? Yeah, I got the money. It's a total trust system. Now, granted, you can show and say, yes, I did send the money. Here's the receipt for the wiring of that money to the seller. You know, that does happen at times. But I just thought it was interesting that it's like you just take the word of people. Seems a little bit naive, but it's kind of nice in the same vein, because we used to, depend on people and their word. You say what you mean and you mean what you say and you stand by your word. But after working in the military and working in prisons and all of that, and being involved in real estate in the United States, being a real estate investor, and seeing the fraud up close that can happen, holy crow! It just kind of sometimes it's a little jarring to see how they do it here. And again, there's no escrow company. But with that, we got the word that we got approved for the loan. Yeah, we found out yesterday that we got approved for the loan. So the next step is, any before that, we had to transfer 10% of the property, or 10% of the money to the seller. We had to wire that as well. And then, of course, at the same time, we're doing the bank thing and putting in for the loan, which is weird because in the United States, you get approved for the loan first, and then you go shopping for a house. That's normally what you end up doing. Here in Korea, it's like, you pick out the apartment you want. We're here legally. So obviously, they go off of the income reported on our visas, and they kind of say, but they never once asked, what you got? It's fine. It's fine. I'm just talking in general. It's okay. It's nothing that can't be found on the internet. So my wife was worried. She thought I was giving away trade secrets or something that was illegal to say about Korean real estate, but it's not. All the stuff I found is the same stuff that I found online and how foreigners can buy property in Korea. So she's just being a little cautious. So anyway, it ends up the differences between how you buy real estate in Korea and how you buy it in the United States is really, really interesting. And it makes you nervous and a little bit worried, but it's just different and it still works. So yeah, we finally ended up, like I said, we got the word that we got approved for the property. That means our mortgage is approved and everything, which is, again, it's not a big, huge loan, considering all the money that we're putting down on the property. It's a lot. And so even if we walk away from the property, the bank is going to make big money because of the huge amount of down payment that I put down on the property. And if you put a huge down payment, that means that if we walk away, the bank is going to get that money, and then they'll sell the property again and they'll make money again. So while it's different and it's like, how can that system sustain itself? You have to look at that. Here in Korea, they want large down payments. And so that's another safeguard for the banks. It's not like the United States that overextended loans to people that shouldn't have had loans in the first place. So you do have some safeguards that are built into the real estate buying process here in Korea that keeps them from having a real estate bubble. I think there will be a correction in the market some way, shape, or form, but as it is now, we're still doing pretty good. So yeah, that's what we got going on. So yeah, the good thing is we got the property. We're going to close somewhere around the middle of the month that we got going on. Not this month, but next month in July. So about the middle of the month. And like I said, it already has tenants. They signed a 2-year lease about a couple months ago. So it's already going to be an income producing property as we see the information on the screen. And let me go ahead and pause that. Complex 9 is 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The size is about 1,200, just over 1,200 square feet. Price is 330 million won, which is about 217,000. And again, the complex is only about 2 years and a few months old, which is pretty good. The rent is 1.9 million won, which is about $1,250. Our mortgage is going to be about $340, and then we're going to have some management fee is going to be 10%. We're going to have to pay for the water filter service, which is next to nothing. Internet is not going to be much at all. And so we should walk away. I know it says $740 per month, but actually it's going to be about $650 because I forgot about the internet and the water filter service. So you got to pay for those things. So yeah, it's quite the interesting little thing. We're going to have an income producing property after our mortgage and all that stuff is paid is going to be about 650-ish a month in USD, which is pretty good. That's a pretty good haul. And yeah, we have plans to go ahead and continue saving money every month and pay that off. So when the 3-year mark hits, we can pay that property off because you can't pay it off immediately. There's like a 3-year period from when you start the mortgage that you can't prepay or you can't pay off the property within 3 years. Now you can pay 8 million won per year towards the principal. And if we take a look at 8 million divided by 1350 or 1530, 1530. So it's about $5,200. Each year out of year 1, 2, and 3, we can put like $5,300 towards the principal with no penalty. Anything above that, it is going to incur a penalty if I want to pay more towards the principal. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Ferris says, yeah, $340 mortgage. Wow. I know, right? And property tax is probably going to be about $200, maybe $210 is what we're guessing. And Ferris asks, what is the interest rate again? The interest rate is 5.09%. Koreans will get like 3 or 4%, so we got the foreigner tax going on. But that's just, I don't complain. It is what it is. And especially at that mortgage rate, it's 40-year, excuse me, it's a 40-year mortgage. Not that I need 40 years, fixed term, 40 years. I chose 40 years, even though we're going to pay it off in 3 years, that if life happens and something bad happens, we have that lowest mortgage payment available. So yeah, it's not going to be too bad. So it ends up, Ferris says $200 tax a month or a year. Oh, the property tax is going to be about $200 a year, property tax. Probably around 210, 220. For this place that we're in, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,600 square feet, it's about $250 a year. But for that place, it's definitely smaller, so it'll probably be about 210, 220. So George has the question, so you're not allowed to pay off early there? No, because you can, but you're going to have a penalty in doing so. So just for that first 3 years, you can't pay off the property, but for year 1, I could put $5,300 towards the principal. And then on year 2, I can pay $5,300 towards the principal. And year 3, I can pay an additional $5,300 towards the principal, but it's not going to change the rate or the payoff or anything like that. But as soon as the 3-year mark hits, then I'm free to pay off the property. So that's why we're going to pay this thing off early. So we'll continue saving money like we've been doing. And we've already figured it out that we can save money. And when the 3-year mark hits, boom, the property will be paid off. And we'll get a little bit of extra money every month, which is cool. Ferris says, I don't know if I'd paid it off early. Yes, 5% rate, but $4,000 a year after owning a condo is pretty much a no-brainer. So yeah, it's pretty good. The thing is, in paying off the property, it's just a thing we do. Yeah, it's going to work out good. And if we make $650 a month times 12, that's going to be about $7,800 a year. And if you take out the management fee, it's going to be about $7,200 a year, which is pretty good. Not bad. Again, about $650 a month. Wouldn't It's a good deal. So it's turned out pretty good. It's turning out to be a good deal. Yeah, it is not bad. And then, of course, with the mortgage is $340. Oops. Yeah, $4,000 a year, $4,080. Yeah, for the mortgage payments, that's not bad at all. Dun, 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 dun. Is that to make sure the property isn't abused by outside investors? No, it's as far as the prepayment or that 3 year, you can't pay off the property in 3 years, in the first 3 years, year 1, 2, or 3. No, it has nothing to do with being abused by outside investors. Outside investors were like fully funding. They weren't like getting mortgages from banks here in Korea, although some do because they have visas. But there are a lot of Chinese people that were buying properties here in Korea that got either financing from China or they just have that type of money and just bought properties and paid in full. So, but yeah, this 3 year thing is kind of a normal thing here in Korea for Korean citizens. And of course, people like us, we're going to pay a little bit more as far as the interest rate because we're foreigners and we hold a visa. So it is what it is. But Korea does have things like first-time home buyers will get reduced interest rates. I think the last one I saw was like 3% or something like that, almost 3%, low 3%. They also have to where they'll help with down payments and things like that for your first home and all that. So there are some things that Korea does to help with its own citizens to get housing. But the problem is that housing in Korea is going up. Now, granted, the place that we're getting that apartment from, it's not like Seoul. It's not like it's not super expensive. But we're already making 30 million won on the deal because we bought it at a discount. So 30 million won, what does that come out to? There, I did it again. 1530, which is about $20,000. So we already made $20,000 on this deal by getting it at a discount, and that's really what we were waiting for. There was similar properties for 340, 350, 360, 370. Most of them on that same level was about 350, 60, 70. I think 375 was the highest that we saw in price. So getting this property in the condition that it is, fairly new, with tenants, income producing property for 330 million was just pretty good. Dun, dun, dun. Fairtha says, if you have the money laying around for paying it off, I would probably just put it into a high yield account and pay the mortgage from the interest I get. You can get to keep all that cash plus the house. Yeah, there's that. But it just, again, you're going to pay taxes on that, on the investing, and it's kind of like 6 of one, half dozen of another. And this is just quick and easy, and this is how we want to do it, and so it works. Fairtha says, if the defecation hits the rotating oscillator, you have a 200K buffer. Yep, that's true. And that's one of the things that's nice because, when you get to the point of where you can have a paid off property, if the real estate market goes down and crashes, generally people who buy properties when there's a crash, more people end up renting. But if the property is paid off, I don't have to worry about that. I can lower the rent prices if I have to. But usually during a market crash, you'll see rent prices go up or stay the same. But let's say for some weird reason, the market crashes and it ends up that the rental prices go down as well. I don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to be upside down because the property is paid for. which, by the way, I'd seen a lot of investors in the United States when we did real estate investing that would leverage themselves to the hilt. And we knew this was going to be a problem. That's why we didn't do it. Is that we needed to give yourself enough wiggle room. And we walked away from a lot of deals because if there was a correction in the market and property prices went down, people would be upside down. They would pay more in the mortgage than what the property is worth. And that created a lot of problems for people, even in the rental situations. So people bought properties that we knew that bought properties way overpriced. And it was like, if I could just hold this for 6 months or a year or 2 years, we're going to be able to make mad money. And then the market crashed and they didn't. So that flipping mentality kind of goes against the grain sometimes, and it doesn't work. But yeah, we could do flips and things like that, but the cash flow looks pretty good. And yeah, it'll be interesting. Fairtha says, but in a crash, you basically can't sell without a loss. That's true, yeah. And if you're short somehow, you're holding the bag, not the bank that holds the loan. This is true. So whenever you have a good position, when you have enough wiggle room in your deal to kind of, weather the storm of a market crash or, something like that, if you don't take that into consideration, you're going to lose your shorts. But the banks they're going to win every time. Because they can write off the property, they can resell the property, the prices are going to be adjusted. But, figuring that the majority of people only live in their house, I think was it like 3 to 6 years, and then they sell it, the bank's going to make their money off the interest. They don't care if it goes back to the bank. Yeah, it'll be a ding on you, and yeah, it'll go on your credit score and things like that. But most of the time, banks look at it, they don't care because they're just going to resell the property anyway. They're going to make money on their interest rates. So they don't really care. I've seen properties change hand 5 times and with the same bank. And the bank keeps giving loans. Property sold, boom, it goes into foreclosure. Hey, they got a year's worth of interest. Boom, they made money. The other time it was like 3 years and then it lost and it went into foreclosure and the bank took it back and guess what? They sold it again. Same thing. So the banks are making money, it is what it is. Fairtha says, everyone in that regard, many people like physical asset, others like the numbers and loans. Oh, yeah, I totally get that. And there's so many different ways to play the game. Kind of like the guy that we purchased the property from. That's all he does is buy at the pre-sale price, hold it for a little bit, and then flip it and do a quick flip and make some money and run and do the other deal. So eventually he builds up his nest egg and be able to get more expensive properties, and to make more profit. And eventually, I'm assuming that it's going to be kind of like going to Seoul and get to the point of where you can buy a condo up there for, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, $10 million, sit on it for a year and boom, you're good. And then you sell it, even if you have to live in it as a primary residence, in a couple of years, you're going to make some serious money. So there's people that are doing that here in Korea. I'm not going to be one of those. Property prices in the U.S. have pretty much barely kept pace with inflation except for that COVID boost. Yeah, I'm not paying any extra on my loan. I invest any penny I have left over. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, and that's good advice too. For us, we have other investments and things like that. But for this is what we're going to do here, and this is part of our plan that. If I kick off and then we've got these 2 properties that my wife can move into the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then she'd be able to rent out this place here, which is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, make a bunch of money, have an income stream, and besides like life insurance and some other stuff, she'll be set, and conversely, if she goes, same thing. But really that's the plan, is to have a paid off property, because in all honesty, I'm kind of old school. Your biggest expense is going to be your housing. And with that all paid off, you're able to maximize saving and using those extra pennies to go into other investments. So, but yeah, there's a lot of ways to play the game, the investing game. And it just depends on what you're doing. So one is no better than the other. It kind of just depends on the goals that you have as an individual. There's stuff that makes mathematical and more financial sense, like paying off. Like people. I remember people telling me you shouldn't ever pay off your house, and then the market crashed, people lost their jobs and things like that. And then suddenly they're faced with, holy crow, now I got to pay my mortgage, which is, a few $1,000s, and I don't have a job, or I had to downsize and I got let go because of whatever downsizing and things like that. And then they lose the house that way. Whereas me, when we paid off our house in the United States, boom, I was out of a job, and guess what? I didn't have to worry about it because we had enough money, invested and coming in. We had enough savings and emergency fund to weather that storm, and we didn't have to worry about, oh, how are we going to make the mortgage payment? Because we paid off the house. So, it's an old school thing. I had people get mad at me on social media. Holy crow! I had a ton of people get mad at me. That send me emails and stuff. This is before we came in, when we were in the United States, and when we paid off our house, and talked about, hey, we're paying down our house, paying it off. That's the goal. I had people that were financial planners. That this one guy, he was a veteran. He was an officer. He was a financial planner, even though it seems like he was a little sketchy on his credentials. It's just problematic in that. He's like, well, you could make, you're paying off. And at that time, the interest rate that I had on the house was 3.35% or whatever. And this guy was just telling me, oh, it's terrible. It's terrible to pay off your mortgage because you can invest and get, 4, 5, 6%, and you can make more money, blah, 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 by investing. And then, there was a little market correction thing that happened. And then that wasn't really a thing. Kind of bit him in the ass. And then, but with me paying off our mortgage, guess what? I could have invested that to make more money, but you're still going to get taxed on that. And even with the taxes, yes, I could have made more money doing that, but it's about having peace. And that's what it really is. Ferrith has said, I'd still have to worry. Over half of my mortgage payment is taxes and insurance. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. But if you make that extra, in the United States anyway, if you make that extra principal payment, even just figure it out at one extra payment on principal just once a year, you can reduce your mortgage from 30 years down to, 16, 15 years or whatever it is, a substantial amount of time off. And again, pumping towards that principal, just extra towards the principal, really, really helps with that. And if it gets to the point of where you can refinance, and you can take advantage of that and get lower interest rate, or whatever it is. But you know what? In the end, it's kind of like paying off credit cards. Pay the smallest amount off first, and then take what you paid off and put that towards the next higher interest rate, and then the next higher interest rate card, and the next higher interest rate thing that you owe, whatever it is, and eventually to where you get to the place where you pay off your mortgage, boom. But by that time, granted that you have a good job and you have money coming in, that really gives you the ability to invest more. But again, it's just one way in which you can invest, and we just like the piece that it gives. Yeah, and it's absolutely right. The mortgage is the biggest bill. So, and after that, it became a lot easier to breathe. Yeah, it's holy crow. Because then it's like, then what do I got to pay? My mortgage is paid off. I have the deed in hand. Now I'm paying utilities, property tax, and, our biggest expense after we paid off the house was food. There's something for you. That's a change of paradigm. That is really wild. Ferrith says, yeah, I would reduce my mortgage from 30 years to like 26, not planning to be there that long. So I wouldn't see the benefit of paying it off early. Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. And, with our place, it was a place that we were planning to be for the long term. And we could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Wife was working, I was working. We're throwing money at the house like a no tomorrow, like, water on a fire, and putting that thing out. And eventually, that was going to be our retirement place, our retirement home, on a golf cart, kind of away from the city and so on and so forth. It was a really nice place. But unfortunately, the property tax, utilities, and everything just kept going up and up and up. And then what we ended up seeing is that when you take that the property tax was going up a minimum of $100 per year every year, and then you project that out towards your retirement age, and then you look at your utilities, the gas, the water, the trash, the sewer, all of that stuff, and those increases, and project that out, you start looking at the math and you're mathing and you're like, the math isn't mathing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to retire, which is probably why 75% of the seniors are not going to be able to retire. That's why they continue to work, because all of these increases. So yeah, I would have to work until I was in, 67 or something like that. And even then, we would do okay. We would survive. We could save a little bit. But even with Social Security, we would do it a little bit better. But yeah, it was still like, ooh, this could be a problem. We could probably retire in the United States at age 67 or 70, full retirement age. But honestly, when we found out that we could go overseas and retire early at 54 and, get deals like with what we have now, it was kind of like a no-brainer for us. It was a no-brainer. Other people, yeah, you got to make your own plan and work towards your own goals. I'm not saying that my goal and my plan is perfect or the best or anything like that, because that wasn't our plan before. It's just something that we latched onto, and we decided, hey, this is what we're going to do, and it worked for us. Could I have worked longer or taken that money, invested it in something else and made more money? Absolutely. But this is what gave us the peace that we so enjoy. And yeah, it works out good. Terry says, I paid my mortgage out because I didn't want to carry a mortgage into retirement. That's why a lot of people can't afford to retire. Yeah. And then you have people that, when you look at their property taxes, holy crow, there's people out there that have some insane property taxes, even though they don't have, there's some people that are paying like $2,000. Somebody said they were paying almost $2,500 a month. That's insane. Ferris says his goal is 55, but right now it looks like I might be able to go a little earlier. Awesome. Basically running to have a big pot of money at that age. Good. Money's good. That's awesome. Yeah, it was crazy. I just wish I was taught this sooner, financial literacy, and at a younger age. And I was taught a little bit, but I don't think there should have been more focus on that in school. And it just wasn't there. And unfortunately, the younger generations they're getting zero financial literacy. And so the follow-up generations are like the ones that are coming out of school now. Hell, they can't even read cursive. They can't tell time on an analog clock. They don't even know what a check is or a budget. They don't even know how to budget. So getting them to retirement is going to be a monumental task. Those are the people that are going to be slaves forever. Ferrith says, my mortgage is $2,500 a month. $1,000 is just taxes. I know, right? Ouch. You always make money on the buy. But yeah, that's rough. But that's about average. George says, I knew a couple that sold their house and retired as long-haul truck drivers that own their own truck and make their own routes. They wanted to pay for trips to places they wanted to visit. That's one way to do it. Yeah. Kind of doing that retirement RV around the United States thing, except make money as you're doing it. Yeah. My grandparents did that. They did the whole RV thing and traveled across the United States and all that. So, yeah. Ferrith says, I had a meeting with an advisor a few weeks ago. It's just not the younger generation. There's a large amount of people in their 50s with basically nothing but Social Security. Exactly. That's why the surveys that I've seen are talking about how 75% of seniors only have Social Security, and they're not going to be able to retire because Social Security, they can't do it. It's impossible. So yeah, it's and that's why more people are looking at overseas retirement. That's why you see places like Bali, see places like Mexico, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, South American countries, Philippines, not so much Korea, because it's not really a retirement destination. They don't have a retirement visa per se, like those other places. Thailand, is people are taking their Social Security and they're like, hey, I either work until I die because my Social Security can't provide, or I go to a foreign country and my Social Security can let me retire. It might be a sparse retirement, but I won't be working. And they're choosing that. Or the choice is they just can't retire. So, yeah. Terry says, in 2032, Social Security payments will be cut by 30%. I know. Which, now y'all are getting me mad. You're making me angry. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy when you talk about that. 20 to 30% cut in Social Security. That, because remember a long time ago, I don't know if you're well versed in the U.S. government and the atrocities that happened, but a ton of people, Democrats and Republicans, borrowed money from Social Security and never paid it back. And so that's kind of part of the reason why. And then the other thing is because we don't have a lot of people now as compared to the boomer generation that were paying a ton of taxes, and the following generations are smaller, so they're not paying as much Social Security, and so they're having problems funding that. So my suggestion was either just, doing a national sales tax and do that, or I like the better idea of having a tariff on everything that comes into the United States, have a little percentage on there for Social Security, and then that way it's not a tax burden on U.S. citizens, which Social Security, if you remember back in the day, wasn't taxed to begin with, and yet people voted that to be taxed. You know who voted for that, for Social Security to be taxed? Joe Biden. Yep, sure did. That was a Democrat thing. Not that I'm a Democrat or a Republican, I'm an independent, but it's just kind of funny on how the party that is, so for the people voted against the people. But they'll still use Social Security. Oh, the people on Social, you got to vote me in because people on Social Security aren't going to make it. And I will change. They always hold their hand like this. I will change things for the better, for our senior citizens. And they never do. Terry says, he says, in Thailand, you can buy a house, but have to lease the land. Yep, that's true. Ferrith says with his house, actually, $2,500 is really good for his area. If I rented, I'd pay the same without any capital gains on the house. Ooh, that is pretty good. So I'm not complaining, he says. Just not going to race to pay that down. I totally get it. Makes sense. Ferrith says the solution to Social Security is obvious. They will implement when it's almost too late. I doubt they will cut it. It will drop 30%. And what was that last part? And Americans into poverty immediately and cause riots. I hope not. But, I mean, could you imagine seniors who are on Social Security that are barely making it, that have to go to food drives to get food so they can survive the month? And I worked in food drives and things like that, getting free food, from nonprofit organizations and stuff like that. You get a box of food or whatever, I think it was like $20 a box, and you get a ton of food. It was like amazing. But when seniors are doing that, and they still are just can't, they don't use toilet paper because they can't afford toilet paper. What's going to happen when their Social Security drops 20 to 30%? Holy crow, that's going to be devastating to a lot of people. So yeah, that poverty is, I hate to say it, but I think you're right. Yeah, it's going to be a huge poverty problem. And that's why people that are in high school now need to learn how to be financially literate. But we're not. We're learning about all these other things, but we're, gender and this and that and blah, 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 and this and that. We're not learning how to save money. We're not learning how to budget. We're not learning about retirement. We're not learning how to start a business. We're not learning how to take advantage of the tax codes when you own a business, or even basic investing rules or compound interest. We're not learning anything about that at all. It's scary. It's scary. DJ says, a wheelchair ride. Yeah, yeah. Ferrithus says there's data on this. 30% of America would drop below the poverty line immediately. Oh, I believe that. I believe it. My wife actually worked for nonprofits, dealt with providing senior care via grants for people that were on Social Security that couldn't make it, that they relied on handouts for food and toilet paper and so on and so forth. And 30%, 20 or 30% drop in their Social Security, I'd put them out on the streets, without a doubt, because they can't make it as it is now, but they're barely making it. And these places that they're in are pretty rough. Take that 20, 30% away, and you're going to have a lot of people out on the streets. Terry says, I'm on Social Security, and they're telling us to prepare for the cut in 2032 because the funding is running out. The cut will extend it farther on down the road. Yeah. I mean, they're going to wait until I think Ferrithus is right. It's going to wait until it's too late. And what's going to end up happening is it's going to be too late. They should be doing something now to fix that. And like I said, you could do a tariff on everything that comes into the United States and have that, boom, fund Social Security. And also, since we're at it, if we're going to fix it, we might as well fix it. All the money that was taken out of Social Security that was borrowed, that needs to go back. But you'll never see that. That'll never happen. But yeah, you do a tariff, all goods and services that come into the United States, small, that would fund Social Security. And then you need to clamp down on Social Security because that system is being abused to no tomorrow. And since we're on the topic of talking about abuse, this is talking about the other stuff. Have you seen the Medicare and Medicaid fraud abuse that has been going on? They caught the one guy, $1.2 billion. And I think Medicare and Medicaid fraud, that's insane. $900 million, $700 million. All of that is fraud, waste, and abuse that, could have gone to something better. I have Social Security, pension, 401k, and other investments. Yeah, you got to have other investments, that's for sure. Ferrith says 78% of Social Security is guaranteed. You're currently getting more than that because they're paying out what is coming in plus some of the fund. In 32, the fund runs out. Yeah, I know. But then there's the other problem. AI. AI and robots taking jobs and things that, advancements in technology to where you had 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 people to produce a product. And now we have 3D printers where any Joe Schmo can make a product. We're removing a lot of jobs, and now we have AI, and then you're going to have robots that are going to come in and do jobs. Hell, it's already happening here in Korea. You got robots doing server jobs. You have, kiosks and things like that, so you don't have to pay somebody to stand in front of a cash register to just do that. Yeah, now you got fast food restaurants that are operated by robots. You've got coffee shops that, you don't have to hire a barista. It's a robot. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. ACA isn't perfect, but Republicans trying to destroy it for years instead of fixing the problems or proposing an alternative has not helped. I totally agree. I totally agree. Both sides are corrupt. It's just different levels and different types of corruption. Same with the UPS, United States Postal Service. Instead of fixing it, it's being sabotaged so they can show, look, it's failing. We need to abolish it. But then I agree with you. But then there's also, I saw the, what was the congressional hearing and how the United States Postal Service and how they're having problems delivering mail and all this stuff and it's broke. And instead of fixing the problem, but yet the guy in charge of the U.S. Postal Service got some insane amount of money as a bonus when the Postal Service is losing money and it's broke. How that doesn't make sense. There's a disconnect in reality, and I think Ferrithus and everybody else would agree. If we had our own business, and the business that I made, I was making a thing, I'm making a widget, I'm making this thing here, and I'm selling it, but I'm doing really bad at it, and I'm losing money on it, but yet I give myself a huge bonus every year, even though, according to the books, I'm in the red and it's getting worse and worse and worse. No, you wouldn't do that. As a responsible person, a fiscally responsible business owner, you would not do that. The fact that we have the United States Postal Agency guy in charge getting a gigantic bonus when it is failing, that just shows you, and that crosses, it doesn't matter if you're left or right or in the middle, that just shows that the system is broken and we shouldn't reward failure. If you can't turn it around or at least have it break even, you shouldn't be getting a bonus. The only reason you should be getting a bonus is if it's profitable. That's all I'm saying. I would never do that in my own home business and the businesses that I ran. If it failed, it failed. And I had some things that failed. It didn't work. And guess what? I didn't pay myself a bonus because it was failing. So I'm not sure why we do that in the world of government. So, yeah. If it's failing, fix it. It's amazing on how there's other parcel delivery companies that are thriving, but the U.S. Postal Service is failing. And yeah, it's just, they're broke because they have to repay 75 years of pensions in advance. A ton of their routes are never going to be profitable because they have a mandate to serve every American. FedEx drops those. Oh yeah. I mean, but there's, it's interesting. There's probably a way to fix it, but the need isn't great enough. There's no fire under their ass to fix it. And if you're paying me a huge bonus, if I'm in charge of the United States Postal Service and it's failing and it's doing poorly, and I don't really care because I'm getting a huge bonus anyway, it seems like a conflict of interest. It's not based on merit and how well you do. So I think that's part of the problem as well. Ferrithus, they're still delivering mail with pack mules in some areas. I wouldn't be surprised. But then there's advancements in technology. I mean, it used to be that everything had to go through the mail. But now, the majority of stuff, I honestly, aside from getting packages mailed, I can't think of anything that I get for finances, investments, banking, medical, the whole nine yards. None of it requires that I need to get a physical thing delivered to me because everything is digital now. I don't know. George says, I would never send anything USPS because I want to make sure it arrives. I know. And the post office, it reminds me of I don't know. It's just crazy. It's just crazy because we've seen the reports and the news articles of people that were stealing mail that weren't delivering mail. I remember reading one where they found this storage locker that was full of mail because the person just didn't want to do their job. Why you'd put it in a storage locker? I guess they had the storage locker and they'd steal the mail and all the other mail. They just put it in there and they get off and work a half day or whatever. I don't know. It's just absolutely crazy. Ferris says something that a lot of people don't know. USPS isn't tax funded. They fund themselves, but the government dictates a lot of the rules. It's a service. Yeah, it is. But it needs to get with the times. It's a service, but really I think we need to reevaluate how much of a service is an outdated service. I think it is. When it starts to affect a politician's pay, they'll work on fixing it. Yeah, I know. Good luck with that ever happening. George says more reason for the government to get out of it. Which I don't know. Privatization. That's something that could they do that? Yeah, they could. Would it be better? Maybe, maybe not. Case in point, like in the military, you have military movers that move military service members and their families and their goods, from one duty station to another, and they come and they pack up all your crap and then they put it in boxes and they move it. So when you get to your next duty station, you get your crap and boom, you're good to go. Problem is that the government would do that and then they privatize that and then you have the lowest bidders. And then there have been cases of where half of their stuff is gone and they can't get payment on their stuff that was gone and missing and stolen. There's cases of where the movers that were contracted to do these military moves lost entire shipments. And they're like, we don't know, your stuff's gone. We don't know what to do. And then there was another report that I saw that showed on a vacant lot military shipments of service members' stuff in boxes in a vacant lot, abandoned. So just because you privatize it or you put it out to bid does not mean you're going to get superior service. I've been long enough in the military, did over 20 years. I saw that whole bullshit. And I've seen contractors. I've worked for the state of Colorado. I've seen the low bidder mentality in government at federal and state. And yeah, just because it's privatized or it's sent out to bid doesn't mean it's going to be better. So yeah, I don't know. Crazy. It'd be very interesting. Very, very interesting. It's almost like it would be cheaper just to give everybody internet. They provide their own phone, give them internet, nationwide access for free for like very minimal bandwidth so you could read your email and that's it. Make it like dial-up or something level of, I don't know. Fairness pops in and he says, Germany did that with their public transit. Now they know this is the worst decision ever. Service is horrible. All hail the shareholders. I know. Yeah, just because you privatize it doesn't mean it's going to fix the problem. Yeah, absolutely. George says, look at the history of the cost of higher education, the movement that the government got involved, the price went through the roof and never stops. Yeah. Who was it? Carter? Carter did that thing to get the teachers union, to get the backing of the teachers and the teachers union, and he did that whole thing, that little dope deal going on with that. And then all of a sudden it was like loans. Oh, we're making loans for education and loans for now it's any type of education, even if the education is useless after you get your degree. And if you can't get rid of those loans, holy crow, those will go with you to the grave. Yeah, talk about lobbyists and politicians at the height of corruption. That is absolutely insane. Yeah, and that's the reason why education goes through the roof. Politicians got involved, and we started, money to be made, by lobbyists and lenders and the whole nine yards. Get with politicians and hey, let's make this so it has to be paid back, that they can't be written off or anything like that. Holy crow! And then couple that with the fact that in school we don't teach financial literacy, so people don't know when they get a school for their student loans on the terms or how long it's going to take to pay that off, or if you make the minimum payments, you're never going to pay off your student loans. You're an adult. They should learn that, but we don't because our education system is broke. Which, by the way, the Department of Education scores have been going monumentally into the crapper ever since that thing came out. So, all that other stuff, a lot of other stuff. I don't know. Crazy. I don't know. And then there's a comment that Ferrithus said earlier that I didn't put on the screen. And let me see if I can find it. Because it brings it up perfectly. Ferrithus said, honestly, I wish the big political fight here in the U.S. was about something as dumb as Rogaine. Yeah, I wish that was the worst thing that we had to deal with. But it's not. Holy crow. Absolutely insane on what's going on in the United States. As an American citizen, I mean, it still bothers me and the stuff that goes on in the United States. But honestly, like I said, I have no plans on ever going back to the United States. No plans whatsoever. It's not that I don't like the United States. It's just not feasible for me, And maybe if I had more financial literacy and I paid more attention and was taught that, hey, this is something that you need to prioritize in life, then I could retire in the United States and I wouldn't have to worry about that. But, and that's my fault, it is what it is, but I dealt the hand that I had. And even despite going through foreclosures and losing businesses and losing millions of dollars, in failed real estate because of fraud and, family members defrauding the company and so on, and having to rebuild my life over again with much frustration. And then being able to claw back and get back to where I could retire at 54. Holy crow. I'm just happy that I'm able to be where I'm at now. But to stay in the place where I'm at, I'm not going to be able to do it in the United States. So, and there's not a lot of crime here, so I like it here. George says, as long as the government says they will back the loan, the colleges will continue to raise the tuition. Yep. And look at tuition for books in college. Holy crow, that is insane. But everything's digital now. And the prices are still the same. You don't have to make a physical book anymore. Online classes and the whole nine yards. Matter of fact, I just saw a thing that was talking about how you can attend Harvard University classes for free online. You don't get a degree, but you can take the classes. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So if you're retired and you want to get some education, look at Harvard or some other colleges. They offer free college classes. You won't get credits for them, but you can attend the classes and get smart. We're getting to an interesting age here in the United States. Oh, and then another interesting thing that I saw is people are talking about AI. Swedish Forge Pop said, hey, what's up, brother? Be happy and stay free. Yes, trying to. Trying to. But I saw an article that was talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and how AI and robots are going to take over jobs, especially AI. And that one guy, I forget his name, somebody could probably correct me. It's interesting that he was saying that when AI comes in, that will be able to do the jobs and free people up to live, as if somehow the job that an AI takes over is going to somehow make money and give that to people that no longer work. That sounds like science fiction to me. I really don't see how that's going to happen, because now I don't know. It's crazy. Crazy. I don't know. Ferret says for-profit goals rarely align with good essential service goals. Yeah, because if it ends up being about money, you should be rewarded for good service, not money for providing a service. I don't know. We'll see. Swedish Ford says, I've been on your stream for 2 hours now. Oh, okay. Oh, it has been. Oh, it has been 2 hours. I'm not all there today. I haven't had breakfast yet, and had an early dinner, something, whatever. Yeah, so I'm a little hungry. Hangry is what I am. Not clicking on all fours. But yeah, I just, it's kind of like, back to the AI thing. If AI is going to take away tons of jobs, but the one guy was saying, and he was kind of like this weird geeky guy, he's saying that AI would provide money for people to live. I don't see how that works. But then it's like, there still needs to be, you still need to have some skin in the game. It can't be just, well, we're just giving money willy-nilly to everybody. I could see, some people are talking about like electric cars, self-driving cars and everything. And that eventually self-driving cars are going to be, you could loan out your car to be a taxi service. Well, I could kind of see that. I would buy an electric car, and I could section off hours during the week in which my car could go drive itself and, be a taxi and make money for me. I could see that. But you have to have investment. You have to have some type of skin in the game to do that. I don't see where AI is going to be so altruistic that it's going to take the money that they make or save from hiring 100 people and then using AI and then taking some of those profits and distributing it amongst humanity. I don't see that happening. I don't know. George says, a piece of paper means nothing to me. I have many of them, and they're all worthless in the real world. Ferret says, AI will definitely flip a lot of things upside down. There will be a lot of winners, and there will also be some losers. Yep. Except for the donkeys carrying the mail. That seems to be, the Pony Express. There's still some of those around. George says, now you have Elon calling for UBI, calling it madness. Yeah, universal basic income, which is you just give people money for the sake of, living and breathing and not being a productive person in society. And the places of where it's been tried, it's failed. Because if you give me enough money to survive, to live and eat and, play some video games or whatever, guess what? The majority of people are not going to work. And, the whole thing of UBI, I remember I saw somebody talking about it, said, oh, this is going to be great because people talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in that people will rise to this level of altruism and, self enlightenment to be, for the good of people everywhere. And I'm not going to be forced to work, but I'm going to go work because I get universal basic income, that I'm going to go work at something that I enjoy. No, that's not going to happen. Look at the people on get welfare that don't work. they don't work, even though they could work. And there's people that get subsidies, in different forms, not just welfare. But those people don't work. If they can have their needs met, they're more likely than not, they don't work into something that they enjoy. So I don't know how that would work. Yeah. Ferrithus says, I doubt my car will do taxi tours, will make any money for private citizen. Once cars are capable of that, the market will be flooded with these cars. Yeah, oh yeah, I totally agree with you. Unless there was some laws put in place or whatever to keep big corporations like BlackRock from cornering the market, like they're trying to corner the market on housing and so on and so forth, and making everything rental, you would have to do something like that, forbidding big corporations and big companies from doing that, so that private citizens could buy an electric car, self-driving car that would go be a taxi service for people that don't have the money to buy an electric car that self-drives and could be a taxi service. So yeah, that's the only way I think it could happen. But yeah, I don't think there will be that protection, in all honesty. And Ferrithus keeps me grounded. Yeah, he's totally right on that. I mean, it would be nice, but yeah, it's about the money, about the Benjamins. Terry says one of their self-driving taxis in Houston drove into floodwaters 2 weeks ago. Not a big deal. Regular people do that all the time. more than you would think. Ferrith says, just look at the electric scooters in larger cities. They came out as a novelty. Within 6 months, city centers were flooded with them. I know. Here in Korea as well. Yeah. There's a lot of those. And I haven't ridden an electric scooter yet. I'm hesitant because I'm old. I don't know, but I'd like to try it. I would like to do, what's that, one wheel? Not one wheel, but the uniwheel, the one wheel, I don't know, whatever. I would like to try that. I think that would be cool. But one fall and break a hip and, yeah, I'm falling and I can't get up, I don't think that would be too funny. So, but yeah, lots of places are flooded with them. And yeah, there's no mom and pop shops with their little scooters, 10 scooters or whatever. No, it's all been taken over by big corporations and businesses that, they're making the money on that thing. So unless you could protect that, it's without protection, you're going to have companies like BlackRock that are buying up entire neighborhoods and they're renting those properties out, and they are becoming the landlord of the United States. So yeah, it's same thing. Electric cars, scooters, whatever it is, whoever has the money and corners the market. It used to, like taxi services. When you had Lyft and Grab and all those things that really, thumbed their nose at, taxis in the old-fashioned taxi services where you had to buy your medallion for hundreds of thousands of dollars so that you'd be authorized to be a taxi. Well, now that's kind of going away, but I don't know. Interesting. Swedish Ford says here in Sweden there are calls to ban all scooters that go over 25 kilometers an hour. Interesting. I don't know. I let them go as fast as they want. You can die at 25. You can die at 50. It's up to you. I would like to try a scooter. By the way, Ferrith says, I like my scooter at 50 kilometers an hour. When you're on the road with cars, you want to go car speed. Otherwise, it quickly gets dangerous. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll rent one of those and try it and see what happens. I'd have to get a helmet, though. Ladies and gentlemen, have your kids learn a trade no matter how good AI gets. It's not a plumber or an electrician. That is true. That is true. But agreed, people driving them on sidewalks is nuts. Yeah, that's true. Don't see a lot of that in Korea. There are some cases of where some people have been hit with kids driving their scooters on sidewalks, but it's not like the United States. And kids here in Korea aren't as stupid as like the kids in the United States. Ride their scooters everywhere, break the laws, blah, blah, blah. If you're a scooter, you should obey all the driving laws, and you shouldn't be driving on the sidewalk. Common sense, what are the odds? But we don't teach that these days. We don't teach that these days. Yeah. So anyway, that's what we got going on. We didn't solve the world's problems. I don't know. Did we? Maybe a couple. Terry says, everybody have a good day. Just got the burgers off the grill. Terry, our resident grill master. Ned Venom says the issue with fast scooters is not the riders, the people nearby that they can hurt. Yeah, that's true. Feel free to ride a scooter, Steve. It's been a while. I used to ride motorcycles. I had some Harleys, had some crotch rockets. Scooter, I'd like to try it out. We'll see. But then again, see, the problem with a scooter is that me and a wife, if we go somewhere, we usually go together. Unless I go to the game store by myself. But would that justify getting a scooter? I don't know. We'll see. Ferrith says, definitely wear a helmet. Oh, yes, definitely. But then I grew up riding a bicycle without a helmet, rode motorcycles without a helmet, then started wearing a helmet with motorcycles, and then, yeah, I would probably wear a helmet. I would have to. Definitely do that. But, yeah, it'd be interesting to try to do the scooter thing or the one wheel or the uni wheel thing. I think that looks really cool. We'll see. I don't know. There's those that go 110 kilometers an hour. I know. Crazy. Oh, what are those? Electric one wheel, or the oh yeah, kind of like these things here, something like that. I'd like to try something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool. I'd like to try that. Or the ones that self-balance. Holy crow, that would be amazing. I always wanted to try one of those. And actually, I looked into getting one of those. But maybe, I don't know, maybe a one-wheel. But, you know, kind of the one-wheel thing there. But the problem is that my weight for like those uni-wheel things or even a one-wheel, I don't know if it would be able to take my weight. I'm 255. Yeah, but some of those things go 60 miles an hour. Holy crow. The unicycle, the unicycles. That's insane. That is crazy. I don't know. Ferris says he doesn't trust a one-wheeler skateboards because they can't hold on to anything. I know. It's just all balance. I would like to have an electric motorcycle at some point. Those seem kind of cool. Get one that addresses claptrap. But yeah, the weight limit on those. What is the weight limit on those? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, no, that's not what I want. There. Official weight limit for one wheel is 275 pounds. Electric unicycle weight limit. Some of those are like 220 pounds. It's typically from 220 pounds to 330 for the heavy off-road ones. But those things are pretty expensive. I don't know. It's just, that'd be crazy. But that would take a whole lot of time and energy and all that stuff. I don't know if I think I'd rather just buy I don't know. We'll see what happens. It'd be interesting. Swedish Ford says, here in Sweden, you get a fine if your scooter goes over 25. Can you have just like a little switch? Like a little secret switch you can flip so somebody pulls you over and you say, no, it only goes 25. Like a governor rod or whatever. George asks, how's the Borderlands outfit coming? Honestly, I got the orange pants and I haven't done anything with it. Holy crow. I've been so far behind on that. I really need to And we got the house thing. We're going to be closing in basically 2 weeks. So we got some other stuff going on for that. But yeah, the Borderlands outfit, I need to get off my ass. Besides doing the Necrons and whatever else, and the 3D printer, the resin printer, whereas you can't see it. Oh, it's not even here anymore. I put it in the other room. I still need to do the unboxing and do that. I really need to get the Borderlands thing going. Yeah, more things I need to do. And it's funny because it's got the orange cargo pants, kind of like BDUs or whatever. Every time I open my closet and they're staring at me in blaze orange, just giving me the side eye because I haven't done anything with them. I don't know. Ferrith says we bought a scooter that had on the packaging that because of regulations are limited to 20, but they give instructions on how to manually unlock the 35. Yeah, it's kind of like my car. I've got a Hyundai Sonata, and on the military base they have like economy car parking spots that are close to the front, and I'll park in the slot because my car has a button that you can trigger economy, comfort, and sport mode. So when we pull in there, I put it in economy mode. I haven't had anybody confront me, but if they ever do, I can just like turn it on and say, look, see, it's on economy. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know, scooter would be, I think it'd be cool because, a couple of times a week I go to the game store and stuff. So I think it'd be kind of cool for that. Maybe I could look that up here in Korea. Electric scooters. Electric scooter. For men. I don't know. Is that a search term there? Dun, 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 dun. We got prices about 432,000 won, 300,000 won, million won. Here's one, just a scooter, say about 400,000 won. So 400,000 won divided by 1530 would be 261 bucks. That's not bad, I guess. I don't know. They got some for 400,000. Interesting. Maybe we'll have to rent and see what happens. Maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. I don't know. We'll see what happens. If there are EV charging spots that are empty, I totally suddenly have to charge them when I want to pick up some groceries. You sneaky bastard, you. That's a good idea. That's interesting. Oh, it should be noted that here in Korea, if you have an electric vehicle, especially with the cars, and they have the underground, we have underground parking here, as a lot of apartment complexes do, and they have the underground charging places, that you can only charge them up to 80% because of the fire hazard of charging to 100%. That was the thing that happened here in Korea. So, but yeah, that's a totally good idea. I haven't seen anywhere they have the charging stations like that close to the front of places, but got to keep that in mind. That's a good one there. I like that. That is an excellent idea. So yeah, electric vehicles, the whole nine yards. We've kind of decided that after our car dies, that we'll get an electric vehicle. That'll be our next, after this one dies, which is a 2018 Hyundai Sonata. So we'll drive that until it goes and goes and goes and goes and then doesn't go anymore. And then we'll get an electric vehicle. I don't know how long that'll be. We tend to keep our cars a long time. So maybe about 10 years. 8 to 10 years. So we'll keep that. I don't know, unless we can get a screaming deal or come into some money and, yeah, get an electric car that way. But, yeah, do the numbers and the whole nine yards. Yeah, we'll have to keep a watch on the numbers to see what happens. And maybe if we buy enough apartments, we can have the apartments pay for our electric car. And we'll do it that way. So, yeah. George says gas motorcycles only because you want the idiot drivers to hear you and pray they don't squish you. Yeah. It's still kind of, it's weird not hearing cars make sounds. So it's just, and electric motorcycles are here in Korea as well. I've seen those. Interesting. So got to keep your head on a swivel. Germany, they have a lot on public parking lots, free parking for EVs because the vendor that operates the charging pays the owner of the lot in hopes that the people charge there and pay for the power. Oh, okay. Ah, that's a good idea. Now I have to jump into bed. It's very late. 2:22 a.m. Holy crow. Yeah, well, go get some sleep, bro. That is just, you need your sleep. With that being said, since it is 9:23 here and I'm getting very hangry, we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this one. For those of you who are interested, there's my email address, Steve, the retired hobby guy, American expat here in Korea, official theverylife@gmail.com. If you want to contact me, comments on videos, not so much because I got like 100 of them, 900 of them. Swedish Forge says, have a good one day. Good day, everybody. Yep. Do that as well. If you enjoy it, George says, have a good one. Yes, you as well, and everybody else that's watching. There are some cool people over here that Bobby Coffees. So if you want to do that and be part of the awesome group, you can do that. Link in the description box. But the best thing that you can do is like and subscribe to the channel. That would be the best thing that you could do. DJD says, thanks. You're welcome. Thank you for showing up on the stream, and Ferrithus and NetVenom and George and Swedish Forge and a number of other people that have come on board. Some of you haven't left any comments, but thank you for watching. I appreciate that as well. If you ever want to comment, feel free. We got a lot of cool people here, and we've only had to ban 2 people so far out of all the time. So the cool people, the cool kids group, and I get to hang around a lot of cool kids. So thank you for being cool. With that being said, we'll leave off with NetVenom. It says, have a great day, y'all. And I say that as well. And hopefully we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace. Must get food. Have a good one, y'all.